You're not broken. You're not behind. You're simply being invited into the fire that will forge the version of you that's finally ready to move. Pain isn't punishment. It's initiation. And what you call stuck is just the silence before your rising. There comes a moment, quiet yet thunderous, when you realize you're no longer just tired. You're spiritually cramped, emotionally numb, and somehow still aching for something more. Picture Sarah sitting in her car after another day at a job that pays her bills but starves her soul. The engine is off, but she can't bring herself to walk into her apartment. Not yet. Because walking inside means admitting that this hollow feeling in her chest isn't going anywhere. Her mind races with familiar tortures, like, why can't I just be grateful for what I have? People would kill for this job, this stability, this life. But gratitude feels like a costume that doesn't fit anymore. Then comes the fear, sharp and cutting, like, if I leave this job, how will I pay my rent? What if I fail at whatever comes next? What if this feeling never goes away, no matter what I do? She remembers being 12, standing in her grandmother's garden, completely absorbed in watching a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis. That moment of pure wonder when time stopped and she felt connected to something infinite and beautiful. When was the last time she felt that alive, that present, that real? The contrast between that memory and this moment feels like looking at the sun and then being plunged into darkness. It's been her constant companion for months now, this weight that no amount of Netflix, wine, or weekend plans can lift. This isn't laziness. It's not a lack of discipline. It's soul-level stagnation, the ache of a spirit calling you to evolve, while your ego clings to comfort like a child clutching a worn blanket. Maybe like Sarah, you've tried journaling. Maybe you've prayed. Maybe you've tried to think positive your way out of pain, but it didn't work. Because the truth is, you weren't meant to avoid the fire. You were meant to become something through it. Think of the blacksmith's forge. The metal doesn't become strong by avoiding the heat. It becomes strong by surrendering to it, by allowing the flames to burn away everything that isn't its truest, most refined form. Listen to the rhythm of that ancient craft, the bellows breathing life into the coals, the hiss and crackle as the flames grow hungry, the metal, cold and rigid, slowly beginning to glow, first red, then orange, then white-hot and malleable. The hammer's percussion not destroying, but shaping, each strike removing what doesn't belong. And finally, the steam that rises when the refined metal meets the cooling water, the sound of transformation complete. The impurities that burn away in that sacred fire are like the fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs that your pain is burning away right now. The fire doesn't destroy the metal, it reveals what was always there, waiting beneath the surface. Your pain is not destroying you, it's revealing you. In this journey together, we explore the spiritual purpose of pain, why discomfort is often the language of transformation, and the real reason you feel stuck, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're being called to something deeper. If you've been in a season where life feels heavy, still, confusing, this message is your mirror. And if you let it, it might just be the door. Let's walk through it together. The language of the soul. But before we dive deeper, we must understand something crucial. Pain is just one word in the vast vocabulary your soul uses to communicate with you. Your spirit speaks in many languages, and learning to interpret them is key to understanding your sacred stuckness. Synchronicities whisper to you constantly. The same number appearing on clocks, license plates, and receipts. Books falling open to exact pages you need to read. Conversations overheard at coffee shops that seem to answer questions you haven't asked out loud. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmations. Your soul's way of saying, pay attention, you're on the right track. Dreams carry messages your conscious mind isn't ready to hear. That recurring dream where you're trying to find a room in a house you've never seen, but somehow know. The dream where you can fly, but only when no one is watching. The nightmare that wakes you with the same feeling every time. Your subconscious is processing truths your waking self has been avoiding. Physical symptoms often manifest when emotional and spiritual messages go unheard. The tension that lived permanently in your shoulders, carrying the weight of dreams deferred. The headaches that come not from stress, but from the pressure of unexpressed creativity. The chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep can cure, because it's not your body that's tired, it's your soul, exhausted from pretending. Persistent intuition is perhaps the clearest language of all. That quiet knowing that won't leave you alone, even when logic argues against it. The voice that says, turn left here, or don't send that email, or this person isn't for you. The more you ignore it, the louder it becomes, until it transforms into the very pain we're discussing today. The echo of stuckness. Why do I feel stuck? You feel stuck, not because you lack direction, but because your soul refuses to walk a path it has outgrown. This isn't failure. This is an initiation. Consider the story of James, a successful lawyer who woke up one morning and couldn't remember why he'd ever wanted to practice law. The cases that once excited him now felt like puzzles with missing pieces. The courtroom victories that once filled him with pride now felt hollow, like applause in an empty theater. He had everything he thought he wanted, yet felt like he was living someone else's life. James's confusion wasn't a crisis. It was a calling. His soul had evolved beyond the identity he'd built, and the discomfort he felt was the friction between who he'd been and who he was becoming. And pain? Pain is not the enemy. It's the messenger. It arrives not to destroy you, but to wake you. Pain is like a smoke alarm in your spiritual house. You don't curse the alarm when it goes off. You investigate what's burning. The alarm isn't the problem. It's the solution, alerting you to something that needs your immediate attention. The question is not, how do I escape this? It is, what is this pain trying to reveal? The descent. Living in invisible cages. Most of us live inside invisible cages, built not from steel, but from comfort. From routines we've outgrown, relationships we no longer resonate with, identities that no longer serve. But we stay because it's not that bad, because it's familiar, because the unknown feels like death. The mythology of comfort. Here lies one of the most insidious deceptions of modern life, the confusion between comfort and true security. Our ego mistakes the familiar for the safe, trapping us in golden cages that sparkle beautifully but prevent our souls from soaring. Society programs us with a mythology that worships stability above all else. A steady job, even if it drains your life force. A long relationship, even if it's built on who you used to be rather than who you're becoming. A consistent image, even if maintaining it requires betraying your evolving truth daily. We're taught that change is dangerous, that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. But what if the bird in your hand is already dead? What if the bush holds not just two birds, but an entire flock of possibilities you've never dared to imagine? Meet Maria, who spent 5 years in a relationship that felt like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. It wasn't abusive. It wasn't terrible. Her cage was golden. Comfortable furniture, security, the approval of family and friends who envied her stability. But every day felt like holding her breath, waiting for permission to exhale. Her friends envied her stability. Her family praised her commitment. But inside, she was slowly suffocating on unexpressed dreams and unspoken truths. Maria's cage wasn't built by her partner. It was built by her own fear of disappointing others, her terror of the unknown, Her belief that comfort was safer than authenticity. The bars were invisible, but unbreakable, forged by her own compromises and reinforced by every day she chose familiarity over freedom. The betrayal of truth. And so we ache. Pain becomes chronic, not because we're broken, but because we've betrayed the truth inside us for too long. This betrayal happens in 1,000 small moments. The times we swallow what we really want to say. The moments we smile when our hearts are crying. The conversations where we nod along with opinions that make our souls recoil. The dreams we defer with someday and when the time is right, knowing deep down that we're writing checks our future selves will never be able to cash. Each small betrayal creates what I call soul debt, a spiritual overdraft that accumulates interest in the form of pain. We borrow against our authentic selves to pay for temporary peace, but the debt always comes due. And when it does, it arrives as the very stuckness we're experiencing now. Pain is what happens when your soul tries to speak through your body. It's your spirit's way of saying, I will not be ignored. I will not be silenced. I will not be betrayed one more day. Inhale, whispering. That tension in your chest, that emptiness in your day, that subtle dread every Sunday night, these are sacred signals, not symptoms to medicate, not flaws to fix, but invitations to listen. Your body is a temple, and pain is its prayer. It's your spirit's way of saying, pay attention. Something here needs to change. The sacred purpose of discomfort is not here to ruin your peace. It's here to realign you with it. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by climbing higher. It becomes a butterfly by dissolving completely. In the chrysalis, there's a moment where the caterpillar literally becomes soup. If you could peek inside that chrysalis during transformation, you wouldn't see a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. You'd see nothing recognizable at all, just potential, pure, unformed possibility. The state of sacred dissolution. Let's dwell in this mystery for a moment, because this is where most of us find ourselves when we feel stuck. In the chrysalis state, there is complete disorientation. The caterpillar consciousness that once knew exactly how to crawl, how to eat leaves, how to navigate the world, that entire identity dissolves into primordial soup. Imagine the terror of that moment. If the caterpillar had human consciousness, it would be screaming, I don't know who I am anymore. I can't feel my legs. I can't see. Everything I knew about myself is gone. The temptation would be overwhelming to try to reassemble itself as the familiar caterpillar, because even a limited identity feels safer than no identity at all. This is exactly where you are now. That profound disorientation you feel, that sense of being nothing recognizable, you're not broken. You're in the sacred soup state. You're in the space between who you were and who you're becoming, and nothing feels solid because nothing is supposed to feel solid right now. The ego desperately wants to remount you as the person you used to be, because that person was known, predictable, manageable. But your soul refuses. It has tasted the possibility of wings and will no longer settle for crawling. This requires a faith unlike any other, the faith to remain in dissolution, trusting that something magnificent is being formed even though you can't see or feel it yet. This is the spiritual equivalent of walking in complete darkness, guided only by the knowledge that dawn always follows the deepest night. Creative destruction. This process mirrors what ecologists call creative destruction. When a forest fire sweeps through an old-growth woodland, it appears catastrophic. Trees that have stood for decades are reduced to ash. The landscape looks barren, devastated, lifeless. But beneath the ashes, something miraculous is happening. The fire has cleared away the dense canopy that blocked sunlight from reaching the forest floor. Seeds that have lain dormant for years suddenly have the space and light they need to sprout. The ash itself becomes rich fertilizer for new growth. What looked like destruction was actually regeneration in disguise. Your spiritual fire is doing the same thing. It's clearing away the dense overgrowth of old identities, expired beliefs, and outdated ways of being that were blocking the light from reaching your true seeds, the dreams, gifts, and authentic expressions that have been waiting underground for their moment to grow. This is the sacred mystery of transformation. Sometimes we must become unrecognizable to ourselves before we can become who we're meant to be. The truth: you don't need more motivation. You need more honesty. What are you still doing that feels soul silent? Who are you still becoming for someone else's approval? What version of you is ready to die so the real one can live? Think of David, a musician who spent years playing the kind of music that got him bookings but left his heart empty. Every performance felt like wearing a mask. The applause was for someone who wasn't really him. The success was built on a foundation of spiritual compromise. One night, after a particularly hollow performance, David sat alone with his guitar and played the song he'd been afraid to share. Raw, vulnerable, completely his own. No one was listening except his own soul, but for the first time in years, he felt alive. This is the spiritual invitation of discomfort: to stop performing and start becoming. To break free not by force, but by feeling. Your stuckness is sacred because it means the old you has expired and the new you is still being born. This space between, this liminal fog, it is not a mistake. It is gestation. Like winter before spring, like night before dawn, like the silence between musical notes that makes the melody possible. The pain you're in is pressing you inward, where your true compass lives. Every time you choose to feel instead of flee, you reclaim your power. Every time you sit with the discomfort, you soften the resistance. And slowly, truth begins to surface. Consider the story of Rebecca, who spent months in what she called the gray zone. Not depressed, but not alive either. She'd lost her job, ended a long relationship, and felt like she was floating in space, without gravity. Friends kept asking what her plan was, but she had no plan. She had no answers. She had only the growing certainty that her old life no longer fit. For weeks, Rebecca sat with the discomfort. She stopped trying to fix it, stopped trying to rush through it. She began to treat her confusion like a guest she was getting to know. And slowly, in the quiet moments between her fears, she began to hear something new, a whisper, a knowing, a pull towards something she'd never dared to imagine. Maybe your truth whispers, it's time to leave. It's time to speak. It's time to return. Whatever it is, it's yours, and it's waiting on the other side of your willingness to feel. Your pain is not random, it's purposeful. Like a river that carves the landscape, your discomfort is carving new pathways in your consciousness, creating space for a version of you that doesn't yet exist, but is already being born. You are not meant to numb the pain. You are meant to metabolize it into clarity. Think of pain as raw material, like coal that becomes a diamond under pressure, or grapes that become wine through fermentation. The pressure isn't punishment, it's the process. The fermentation isn't failure, it's transformation. You are not stuck. You're standing still enough to remember who you are. The story of sacred patience. Let me tell you about Leo, an entrepreneur whose business hit what felt like an impenetrable wall. For an entire year, nothing moved. While his peers launched new ventures and celebrated victories, Leo watched his own projects stagnate. His bank account dwindled, his confidence crumbled. He felt like a complete failure, surrounded by evidence of everyone else's progress, while his own life felt frozen in time. Friends offered advice. Maybe you need to pivot. Perhaps this isn't your calling. Have you considered getting a regular job? The suggestions stung, because Leo had started to wonder the same things. Maybe he was deluding himself. Maybe he wasn't cut out for this path. Maybe this stagnation was a sign to give up. But something deep inside refused to quit. Not stubborn ego, something quieter, more knowing. During those long months of apparent failure, Leo was forced to strip away everything that wasn't essential. He had to confront his relationship with money, success, and approval. He had to sit with uncertainty until it became a familiar friend rather than a frightening enemy. Most importantly, he developed what I call sacred patience, the ability to trust in invisible growth, to believe in underground preparation, to have faith in the timing of emergence. When Leo's breakthrough finally came, it wasn't just a business success. It was a quantum leap that surpassed anything he could have achieved without that year of seeming stagnation. The resilience he'd built in the darkness became the foundation for handling the light. The clarity he'd gained through forced stillness became his greatest competitive advantage. Leo realized that his year of stuckness hadn't been a detour from his path. It had been his path, the apprenticeship his soul needed before it was ready to hold the success that was coming. The version of you that moves forward from here will not be the same, because this time you're not rushing, you're not running, you're rooting. Like a tree that grows deeper roots during a drought, your spirit is deepening during the season of apparent stillness. The growth isn't visible above ground, but it's happening. The roots are reaching towards sources of nourishment you didn't even know existed. The real reason you feel stuck is because your soul refuses to shrink back into old timelines. And the pain, it's not punishment, it's the push into purpose, into presence, into power. Your stuckness is actually a sacred rebellion. It's your soul's refusal to participate in a life that doesn't honor its truth. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit into molds that were never made for them. But your pain is evidence that you're different. You're someone who can't pretend forever. This is both a blessing and a burden. It's easier to sleepwalk through life, to accept good enough, to follow the prescribed path. But your spirit won't let you. It keeps waking you up, keeps asking for more, keeps pushing you toward your authentic expression. Think of it as spiritual insomnia. Your soul won't let you sleep through your own life. The mystics knew this. They understood that spiritual awakening often begins with spiritual crisis. The dark night of the soul isn't a detour from the path, it is the path. It's the necessary dissolution that precedes resurrection. Your pain is not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're breaking open. The metamorphosis mind. While you're in the chrysalis of change, your mind will try to convince you that transformation is taking too long, that you should have answers by now, that everyone else has it figured out. But transformation operates on soul time, not clock time. Consider the bamboo plant. For years, it appears to grow slowly, almost imperceptibly. Then, in a single season, it can grow up to 3 feet in just 24 hours. The explosive growth wasn't sudden. It was the result of years of root development that happened beneath the surface, invisible to the naked eye. Your transformation is like bamboo. The roots are growing. The foundation is being laid. And when it's time, when the soul season is right, your growth will be unmistakable. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the pain that's pushing you toward your becoming. The gift of spiritual friction. The discomfort you feel is spiritual friction. the resistance that occurs when your expanding soul rubs against the constraints of your current life. This friction creates heat, and heat creates transformation. Without friction, matches don't light. Without pressure, diamonds don't form. Without resistance, muscles don't grow stronger. Your pain is not a bug in the system of your life. It's a feature. It's the mechanism by which your soul creates the conditions necessary for your evolution. Most people try to eliminate friction from their lives, but friction is what creates fire, and fire is what creates light, and light is what creates clarity. So instead of asking, how do I get rid of this discomfort? Ask, what is this discomfort trying to create? The courage to disappoint. One of the deepest sources of spiritual stuckness is the fear of disappointing others. We stay in relationships that have expired, jobs that drain us, and identities that no longer fit because we're afraid of the conversations we'll have to have, the expectations we'll have to break, the image we'll have to shatter. Distinguishing true support from conditional acceptance. But here's what I've learned. We must learn to distinguish between true support and conditional acceptance because they look similar but feel completely different. True support sounds like this. I love you and I want you to be happy, even if your happiness changes our relationship, even if your growth challenges me to grow too, even if your authenticity forces me to confront my own compromises. Conditional acceptance sounds like this. I love you as long as you continue being the person I expect you to be, as long as your changes don't inconvenience me, as long as your growth doesn't threaten my comfort zone or force me to question my own choices. The people who truly love you want you to be happy more than they want you to be consistent. They want you to grow more than they want you to stay the same. They would rather love the real you than a comfortable lie. And the people who don't, they're not your people. They never were. The grief of outgrowing relationships. There's real loss that comes with recognizing that some relationships were built on an outdated version of yourself, friendships that thrived on shared complaints but can't survive your newfound peace, family dynamics that depended on you playing a role you're no longer willing to play, professional relationships that were based on who you were, not who you're becoming. This grief is valid and necessary. Honor it, sit with it, allow yourself to mourn the connections that can't evolve with you. But don't let that grief become a prison that keeps you from your authentic self. Some relationships are meant to be transformed. Others are meant to be treasured for what they were and gently released. The wisdom lies in knowing the difference and having the courage to act on that knowledge. Your authentic self is not a betrayal of anyone who truly loves you. It's a gift to them because when you stop pretending, you give them permission to stop pretending too. The courage to disappoint others is actually the courage to honor yourself, and honoring yourself is the first step towards honoring everyone else authentically. The return to wholeness. This journey through pain to purpose isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning, expectation, and compromise. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply being invited back home to yourself. The pain you've been carrying is not your enemy. It's your guide. It's been trying to lead you back to your authentic self, back to your truth, back to the life that's been waiting for you to claim it. And now it's time to move. If you're hurting, you're healing. If you're confused, you're closer than you think. This isn't the end. This is the edge, the moment just before flight. So breathe deep, honor the ache, and remember, you are not stuck. You are sacredly becoming. The caterpillar doesn't know it's becoming a butterfly. It only knows it's dissolving. But dissolution is not destruction, it's transformation. And transformation is not punishment, it's potential becoming reality. Your pain has been your teacher. Your stuckness has been your incubator, and your confusion has been your compass, pointing you toward a truth that can only be discovered in the darkness. You are ready. You have always been ready. The question is, are you willing? Willing to feel instead of flee, willing to trust instead of control, willing to become instead of remain. The door is open, the path is clear, and your authentic self is waiting on the other side of your willingness to walk through the fire. This is your moment. This is your invitation. This is your sacred becoming. The light that enters through your wounds will illuminate not just your path, but the path of everyone who has the courage to follow their own pain back to their purpose. You are not stuck. You are standing at the threshold of your transformation. Step forward. If this message found you exactly when you needed it, if something inside you recognized the truth in these words, then you're part of a community of souls who refuse to settle for spiritual numbness. Subscribe not just for more content, but for more connection. Because your awakening journey deserves witnesses, and your transformation deserves celebration. There's so much more truth waiting to unfold within you, and I'm here to walk alongside you as it does. Hit that subscribe button, and let's continue this sacred conversation together.